Welcome to Rebecca Sounds Reveille. I'm excited because today I get to talk to you and share with you someone who's been in radio for quite some time. In fact, he's been producing radio for a very long time. He started back in 2012 with podcasting, and in 2016, he actually formed and founded Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. It's really neat because he's got quite a few radio show hosts, but let me go back a little bit before that. He was raised in New York City. He is an Air Force veteran, and he eventually established roots in California, specifically in Northern California, where he wrote, performed, and produced comedy. And so this is going to be a very exciting show because with so much of his background, he is going to, I have no doubt, entertain us with some of the things that is going to make you laugh. And so, and some of this is going to just keep you abreast of what's going on currently in this kind of industry as well. But I'd like to bring him on now because he's got so much to offer and to share with us. I'm just so delighted. Ralph Zig Tyko, welcome to the show.
Oh, Rebecca, what an introduction. My God, I'm starting to glow and it isn't even 3 o'clock.
Well, I've got to tell the audience too, you are known as, you've been known as the unzipped mind of Ralph Tyko. You've also kind of been known as Zig Zagman Jr.
Well, I've performed for a long time, and I've been known as a lot of things. But I do a little comedy. What I'm doing now is my podcast and my podcast network, and it's just basically an internet talk show brought to life by some terrific contributors from all walks of life. We have authors and former baseball coaches and managers and players and journalists, and we go back to the old days and we talk vintage sports, and we keep up with some of what's going on in the baseball world, and I'm just having a hell of a time doing it. We entertain folks, but more than that, we inform them, and we kind of take them back to old school days. Most of us are kind of vintage ourselves. We've aged and aged well with good memories, and we've all had a passion for what we've done in life. Mm-hmm. And it shows through on the network. And if you're out there and want some good podcast, talk show radio, check out the website. It's comfortablyzonedradio.com. I am the producer, the idiot non-savant of it all. And I bring people together and we have fun, and we leave you with a better taste in your mouth than you had going in.
I absolutely love it. If you're not having fun, really, what is the point of doing it, right?
Well, didn't OJ's attorney say it best? If it ain't fun, it shouldn't be getting done.
Oh my goodness. I love what I do, and I can't even imagine trying to talk to an audience without enjoying this. I just can't even imagine it. So you've got provocative shows, you run it 24/7. Well, I shouldn't, you give yourself a little bit of a break, but your shows are online 7 days a week. You have things going on all the time. And so let me ask you, you've had some incredible guests, Ralph. What is some of the most funny and memorable shows that you've had
Wow. Um, the most memorable show for me was when I interviewed one of my boyhood heroes in terms of um, he was a journalist. He's the late Leonard Coppett, and
Mm.
he's a Hall of Fame sports writer in two sports, both basketball and baseball. And I was doing a TV show, a cable TV show in Northern California, and he was nice enough. He moved from New York in the '70s, and he was nice enough to come into the studio. He was my first real interview. I started at the top, and
Oh,
what brings to mind the fun I had was that he was such a professional. He put me at ease right away.
uh-huh.
He had been a writer for the New York Post in New York, obviously, and I delivered the paper when I was a kid. And I told him that we had that in common. We both worked for the Post.
Uh-huh.
He looked at me and I said I was a delivery boy and you were writing this great column and what have you. And he looks at me and he says, "You had the more important job of the day."
Oh,
I got the paper. What he said, I got the paper to the people, but he was so humble and so nice. And I realized that what I wanted to do, with the rest of my life is just talk to folks and communicate with them in a way that they can show their humanity. And I hope you're going to take this opportunity to say that I'll be taking my act to TLBTV pretty soon. And
I am.
all right.
Yes, because we want to welcome you to the TLB TV family. And we also want to really encourage our audience to share not only your show, but those on your network and those that'll be coming over to ours as well. I mean, because they'll still be on both networks. I mean, this is a growth of an industry, and you're an incredible entertainer. I Which also reminds me of wanting to know more about your comedy. I
Well,
really want.
I'll tell you a little bit about it. I rose to mediocrity. How's how's that? I started low and just continued on a very slight upward path. I had fun doing it. I produced a lot of comedy. I produced the first show that Margaret Cho ever got paid to do.
No kidding.
Yeah, in San Francisco, it was a benefit for the blind, and I produced it and uh, take great pride in that. She um, rose on from there to uh, actually become sort of an icon in the comedy world, if
Mhm.
you will. And worked with a lot of great people. I opened for Robin Williams at one time or another and got to know him a little bit. And but more importantly, I got to know some folks that were just folks that were in comedy, were coming up, going down, and we're all human beings, and we all shared uh, the ability to get on stage, and not many people can do that. Many people have the guts to let it all hang out. And I'm proud at whatever level I did comedy at that I did it, and I'm still doing it on one level or another. And you got to take a chance in life. Columbus took a chance, and if you have a dream, it never dies. And when it dies, that's the first time you really a little bit of you dies as well. So keep from letting that happen. And I talk to people who are still have it all in their 80s and 90s, and I take pride. You ask me what's memorable in what I do. I've interviewed 4 or 5 people over 90 who still have it together, still talk about the old times. Um, Many more in their 80s that still do that. I have podcasters on my network that are in their late 70s, early 80s, and they have voices that they sound like they're 40 and their brains are intact. There's a big misconception about aging in this world,
Mhm.
and I'm 72 myself. I know I don't feel it. I know I don't look it. I know I don't sound it. And the only thing that makes people old is thinking that they're old. I, uh, from my experience, the people that age poorly are always concerned with their aging, and they're always thinking about going downhill.
Uh-huh.
One advantage of never having a hill, being over the hill, is never been having a hill in the first place. It's hard to be over a hill when you haven't been on a hill. But I enjoy what I do. I will try to transcend it to television again. It's been a long time since Sports from the Top of the Hill at Cal State Hayward in 1995, but we'll make it work on internet radio or internet television. All new to me. I'm a dinosaur in a lot of ways, so this is so exciting. A, that I lived long enough to see it, and B, that we could do so much more than the media, the medium allowed in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Exciting times, and I'm glad to be part of it. I thank you for bringing me into it, Rebecca. You're,
Oh, you are so welcome. And I've got to tell you, you have definitely hit right on the money with technology. And we have seen some very fast changes, even just in the last 20 years. It's just been unbelievable. And, I'm wondering with your comedy, did you do any while you were in the Air Force?
uh, just amongst my workmates. They were
Okay.
working and I was mating. Um, I uh, I had a little act with my buddy Rich, and I worked in an office for 2 years on swing shift, a little office in base supply. It was expedite. We'd have to expedite parts to maintenance. And it really got quite boring. You'd answer the phone, you'd punch it into punch cards, you'd put it on computers. So Rich and I decided that we're going to come up with a little act based on our silly little jokes. How's the wife? Pretty good. How's mine? Etc. Is your girl free? No, but she's reasonable. We go back and forth for 8 hours a night on swing shift, night after night, with the same 17 jokes back and forth.
Oh, no
You
kidding.
got a banana in you. We're driving people crazy. And they're coming up to us and saying, we'd like you to go home. Is there any way we could arrange for your discharge? And I was all ready for that, but um, we had fun doing it, and we communicated very well with our fellow workers. And here's to your Rich Pastore living in Texas right now. If you're listening to this, we had some good times.
Mm.
Rebecca, tell me a little bit about how you got started in this.
Oh, my experience in media kind of goes back a little ways. I did some extra work in Hollywood, and I've done some state training videos for the state of California. Um, just a few little things. But what got me with TLBTV started out when I was sharing my in promoting my book, Victims Overcoming Traumatic Events, via radio. And I fell in love with radio because I found it an opportunity for me to share more with the audience in reference to helping them overcome domestic violence and other types of trauma. And so it just branched into this. And I love it because it really gives me an opportunity to share with the audience things that they can do when they leave from hearing or seeing the show, something that they can do or be inspired by that will help them move in a right direction. And you've said some incredible things today that I think is really going to help move the audience. And one of them, just one of them, is that age is not something, we have a misconception about being or thinking about what age is and being or feeling old. And I really have a lot of value in what you said, because it really does kind of limits you when you place those kinds of limitations on yourself. So I just thought that was something really important to point out.
Hey, be proud of the fact that you made it to whatever age you are. People say, oh, I'm 30, I'm 40, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. Not everybody reaches X age. I'm 72. As Casey Stengel used to say, a lot of people my age are dead. And you can look it up. He meant it, and it's true. Growing old is a privilege. It's not a right. It's a privilege. And a lot of it is pure luck. A lot of it is genetics. But a lot of it is your state of mind and having something to live for, having a passion, keeping your passion, passing your passion on to others, to make a difference in the kid's life. And he or she will remember you years after you're gone. And so what that means is, whatever you think about an afterlife, you are that is your afterlife. At the very least, nothing else, you're still alive. And don't be afraid to give it up to young people. Shaw told us that. George Bernard Shaw said, we become antiquated. So we have to give it to the young people, give our knowledge to the young people, and let them expand upon that knowledge and take it in a way that in our lifetime we could never even imagine. I can imagine my grandfather, he'd read me Dick Tracy cartoons, the funnies on Sunday morning. And Dick Tracy had a little thing on his wrist where he was communicating wirelessly with the world. And we thought, my God, that's just fantasy. That'll never happen. Look at us now on the internet, on, Facebook, for instance. We get to meet up with folks that we knew in our youth. And Rebecca, did you ever meet up with somebody on Facebook that you knew when you were a kid? You didn't like them when you were a kid, and you don't like them now? That's part of Facebook. We go back in our lives and we see people, and we get to see how those kids grew up. And it's amazing. 9 out of 10 times, we could have told you as kids in the schoolyard that that person was going to grow up just as they did.
That's an interesting. Yes, that's really interesting that you say that, because there are a lot of characteristics that are there stay there.
Absolutely. People are what they are. I think from having raised my son, he was, by the time he was 5, there were he was just like he is now at age 5, good, bad, or indifferent. You had the good things formed, and I think people are formed by the time they're 5. And I don't think going back and looking at it psychologically and bringing up all that stuff is the way. I think the way is accepting what you are and building on it and not having to look back on certain things. But that's just my personal opinion.
Well,
I'm
I
full of
think
those without being opinionated, I might add.
I think you've made a really good point because a lot of times we expect people to be a certain way and place expectations on people and want to mold them and shape them to do certain things. And we all have certain gifts and we're wired a certain way to really shape the world to do some very incredible things. So I like what you're saying.
Well, who wouldn't, Rebecca? Let's face it. Just a little humor there, Rebecca. I'm sure there are people out there that wouldn't if they stopped to think about it. Rebecca, when I start my show, would you be one of my first guests?
Absolutely.
All right, I appreciate that very much. And I thank you for bringing me into this. This is very exciting. The idea of what I can do with with transforming my podcast into television is just my imagination has been going crazy in the last few days. I'm very excited.
We
So,
are really excited to have you as part of the family. And in the meantime, for those of you who are watching, Ralph, why don't you tell them where they can find your shows now?
well, like I say, all of our shows are archived on YouTube. If you went to YouTube and punched in comfortably zoned, you would come up with 1,000 plus, um, or I think it must be close to 2,500 offerings of anywhere from 35 to 55 minutes. And they are, um, like I say, different because we're older for the most part. Our average age is recently deceased. So, no,
I'm
I
sorry.
exaggerate, I kid, and I walk on the graveyard. What's that? Dancing on the graveyard. It says, but we have something to give in terms of putting light. There's a perspective that we were talking to Roger about this. There's a perspective that people who age well have. They can look back on how it was, in my case, in the 50s, 60s, 70s. So when we have an anomaly like a Donald Trump coming to our lives, not that he's good, bad, or indifferent, he's just he's just something we've never had. We've got to deal with it.
Right,
So,
right.
but if you put things into perspective, this isn't the first crisis we've dealt with. Hell, Harry Truman had a crisis. It was Hiroshima. Think about that. Now that's a crisis. John Kennedy had a crisis. The Bay of Pigs. The standoff with Russia. The Bushes had a crisis. First Bush had a crisis. Do you remember him?
I know.
He sat in the White House. Ollie North. He, he sat with Bush in Reagan's basement and disregarded Congress. That was a crisis. His son had a crisis. 911 had to manufacture a way to get into Iraq. It's a crisis. It was tough on him and Cheney. Had to come up with stuff. They had to take back money for Katrina, for all of those dams that were going to stop the next hurricane. Take them back, put them into, take the money back, put it into Halliburton, put it into the war. Sure enough, there's a hurricane. That was a crisis. Nancy Pelosi was faced with a crisis in those days. She
Mhm.
took over Congress, and Bush was the president. And Bush was committing, he and Cheney were committing war crimes. And she had a crisis. Should we impeach this guy? Nah, don't bother him. He's busy. It wouldn't be a good idea. She has a crisis now. Should we impeach this guy? Nah, we don't want to offend anybody. So, a lot of what I'm going to tell you on Comfortably Zoned with the Zigzag Man on TLBTV is the truth. And a lot of it is just my idea of the truth. So I'm going to put stuff out there. I hope to develop a call-in system where people call and say, you are full of it, Tyko. And I'll be able to tell them why they're full of it and communicate that way and have it be fun. But don't worry too much about Trump, ladies and gentlemen, because crises have existed since FDR had to decide whether to get into the war. And well, maybe we should let the bombing of Pearl Harbor happen. Maybe that is a good possibility, and it will unite everybody. And guess what? It united people beyond his belief because they did more damage in Pearl Harbor than he could have imagined. And we came back stronger than he could have imagined. And we banded together and we fought with the Allies and we won World War II. And you know what? If we could band together back then, and when we were decimated, people didn't want to get into the war. We had a war going both with the Japanese and with the Germans. So we were caught on two fronts, and yet we got together and had the American spirit. And for those that think America wasn't ever great, it was that one time when we banded together. It wasn't great when we were founded on imperialism by slave owners.
Right.
That wasn't a good time, but it was a good time in World War II. We have that to look back upon so we can unite again as a country. And I hope to put that all out there on TLB TV.
Well, we're excited to have you as part of the TLB family, TLB TV family. And I would encourage all of you who are watching to check out, in the meantime, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. And I want to thank you, Ralph, for being on the show today. I really am excited about all of the shows that you have on your network and yours specifically.
Oh, you're very sweet. I appreciate it. And in all seriousness, you've opened my eyes to a new venue, and I really can't thank you enough. And I'd like to put a little word out, a shout out, if you will, like an old radio disc jockey. I want to put a shout out to Steve Joyner, who's a publicist out there and an old time publicist. He gets people together on the phone. He got us together. And we hit it off, and that's terrific. Thank you.
Yes, he does.
And I'm sorry to give you an
imitation
of your voice, but that's the best I can do.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in. I want you to, again, take a look at Comfortably Zoned Radio. I want to thank you for watching. Share this with your friends, family, and all over social media. This has been brought to you by the Liberty Beacon and TLBTV.com.